Hey you guys, it's Patrick, and I'm back with another video detailing and chronicling my journey, my adventure really, with and into sobriety. And I say into because if you watched my last video, you know that I've done about 60 days or 2 months free of THC. And that's a big deal. Like for me, it's a big deal as someone who is smoking a lot of weed, especially in the last 2 or so years. Sometimes people ask me, well, what's a lot? I'm talking morning, afternoon, and night. Most days, not all days, but most days, morning, afternoon, night. I'm talking, I would wake up sometimes 2, 3, 4 in the morning, hit my bowl, lay back in bed, and then go back to sleep. So it was just almost like a constant uptake of flooding my body with those amazing cannabinoids that are in THC. Of course, the body also produces cannabinoids endogenously, but I guess the quantity in a way and the quality of the ones that come from THC, it's just like a flood for the system for all things. Well, in one sense, pleasurable. You've got the dopamine, you've got the anandamide, you've got the whole endocannabinoid system is just sort of getting like turned on. But our brains being neuroadaptive just kind of reset their baseline to expect that to always be the norm. And so that requires then the external cannabinoid. It's no longer endogenous, it's exogenous. And that is, I mean, this is a pattern that I'm describing that applies for most forms of dependency or addiction. I remember even hearing about this with, people talking about taking melatonin as a supplement for sleep. It's like, well, the brain produces melatonin, and if you start to give it to your body from an external source, the body is so wise that it's just going to say like, well, I'm not going to waste energy on producing that if we're going to be able to get it from somewhere else. So long story short, I needed a break from cannabis. I took the break from cannabis. I had tried so many times to take this break in the past. I had done 30-day breaks. I had done 5-day breaks. I had done 7-day breaks. But all of those breaks culminated in basically me right back where I started, where the habit got out of hand again. It didn't take long, honestly, maybe just a couple days before I was looking for excuses to smoke more than one time a day. Even if I started off as like, you know what, I'm only gonna do it once a week now. I just found that the stuff was so good that I could not resist it. Hence this longer break. And the video that I want to make today is kind of how hard the journey is into sobriety, and what's the word? Like, how many reasons it feels like there are to not do it. Like, and I'm really feeling it this morning, to be honest. Maybe it'll help when I have a cup of coffee. I'll get that little boost. For now, I'm sipping on some hot water. It's not all sunshine and rainbows all the time when you first give up the drug, the plant, the chemical, whatever it is you want to call it. When I first am giving up cannabis, these first 2 months, yes, a lot of aspects of my life are getting way better. If you watched my video on what 60 days free was like, I went through many examples of ways in which my life and aspects of my life have become increasingly better, increasingly more beautiful. I feel more connected, I feel more motivated, I feel more enthusiastic. But the reason I wanted to come on and make this video today is to say that there's a lot of days where I still feel like shit. I still feel like not getting out of bed in the morning. I still hit a certain point during my day where I basically feel paralyzed. I don't want to do anything. Task paralysis, a lot of people call it. I see that people who struggle with ADHD suffer from task paralysis. I've even had other friends tell me that then when they feel like they hit a wall and they're in that place of task paralysis, they take a little puff on a joint and all of a sudden it breaks them free of it and they can start checking things off their to-do list. So it's funny, I hear something like that and I'm like, well, fuck, what am I doing? Is this all really worth it? And that's the question that I'm sitting with today. Is this all worth it? There's something deep down in me, like a whisper that is saying, yes, keep going. The groundwork is just being laid. We're not even at the part where, for example, the the walls or the framing of the house has started to go up yet. The groundwork, the structural integrity is just being laid now. So why does it feel so bad even 2 months in? 2 months on one hand is a long time. It's commendable. A lot of people have congratulated me for hitting that benchmark. And on the other hand, I'm only just at the beginning. Another thing I spoke about, excuse me, in the last video is how weed helped me to not care. It helped me to de-stress. But sometimes stress comes up in our bodies and in our minds for a good reason, to alert us to the severity of a situation that needs mending, that needs changing, that needs attention. And when we just sort of take that stress and dispel it, dissipate it with a little toke, then we're no longer being alerted to perhaps the severity of the problem that stress is rising up as a result of. This might be a good metaphor. You're driving your car and all of a sudden the check engine light turns on, or the warning light checks on. And I've done this so many times, I'm like, whatever, I'll deal with it when I need to deal with it. Maybe even you just notice your car is low on gas, right? Whatever, I'll deal with it when I need to deal with it, when I really need to deal with it. And so you push it off and you push it off, and then all of a sudden you need to be somewhere in a hurry. You only have, the right amount of time to get to your destination, but oh shoot, you didn't fill your gas tank when you saw that the light went on, or the car broke down. If you had done it initially, you would have been fine, but instead you prolonged it, and then it's creating a little bit more inconvenience in your life. That's just one kind of like metaphor in a way. A lot of times when the check engine light goes off, we would rather not address it and just look to something else. And now I kind of feel like, okay, the check engine light is going off in my mind body system here, in my psyche, in my, maybe even in my body. And I'm having to actually look at it. The stress is rising up, and I'm not just taking the toke and dispelling that stress. I have to actually deal with it now. But what I'm finding is like, I don't always know how to deal with it. I don't know what to do. So sometimes, as I mentioned again in the last video, I resort back to other coping mechanisms with food or with scrolling on my phone. Yesterday I fell into like a couple of hours where I was just like walking around the house like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do with myself right now? And I can feel it. I can feel how like this whole idea of the groundwork being laid, it's friction, because it's going against what my conditioning is telling me to do otherwise. Because after years of just smoking, I became conditioned to just smoke anytime that there was a problem. And maybe that's okay sometimes. But what I found is that there were actually problems that I needed to address. I wasn't addressing them because I wasn't allowing myself to feel the stress that was rising up as a result of those problems. And so now it's kind of like, well, what are we going to do? To be completely honest, I feel like even me coming in here and making this video is a little bit of a stall tactic to actually just get in there and start my day with what I need to do. But I'm also using it as an opportunity to try to capture some of my reflections and put up some content in case this resonates with anybody, because I think it's so easy for people to tell you to quit your drug of choice, to drop your habit of choice, your vice of choice, because your life is going to get so much better. And I don't know, I feel like I just kind of want to deliver an honest dose of what my experience has been like, is that so many times, like almost every day, it's like there's a case that my rational mind is trying to make to just let me use weed again. And that is the case that if we really played that thing out and took it into the courtroom, you've got, one side arguing for smoke weed, you've got the other side arguing for sobriety. We need to actually hear out the arguments from either of these sides. And that taps me back into my why. Anybody who's undergoing a series of behavioral changes, or what I like to call identity evolution, should start with why they want it in the first place. Because as I mentioned, it's going to be, in a sense, so counterintuitive. It's going to be so against your conditioning that everything will just kind of, you're going to be swimming upstream. So it's like at a certain point, it's going to become so challenging that you're like, well, I'd rather just go with the stream. I'd rather just go with the current. But if you tap into your why, you hopefully can get the resolve, the strength, the tenacity, the courage to keep going. I am recording this as a reminder for myself. If you happen to also find it useful, I'm so glad to hear that. But don't just think that I'm sitting here preaching to you. I'm saying the words that I need to hear most. I spoke about my why a tiny bit at the end of the last video, and maybe I'll make another video where I go more detailed into the actual why for me. But as I mentioned, it has everything to do with actualizing my potential. And I think that we are best suited to actualize our potential, best situated to actualize our potential when we are in good health. And honestly, I think that my cannabis habit got to a point where it was degenerative to my health. It'd be great if cannabis comes back into my life at some point and it can be a generative force for me. But if at the end of the day, the net outcome of my relationship with cannabis is actually causing me degeneration, what does degeneration look like? Well, you have to look at your energy levels. You have to look at, I was feeling the way it was making my throat like incredibly like scratchy, and my kind of ruining my voice because I was just smoking all the time. I was looking at what it was doing to my eating. I was looking at what it was doing to all of my other kind of like cheap dopamine seeking activities, everything from watching pornography to binge eating to doom scrolling on social media. I was looking at what it was doing for my relationships, how it was like I used to go out in the world and be like scared that I would see somebody I knew when I was high all the time. And again, a little, spurt of hope in this kind of darker video is that I had an experience recently where I was out in town and I saw someone I recognized, and I actually went out of my way to go and say hello to them, which was so the opposite of how it was when I was high all the time. I was kind of like, oh God, blinders on. Let's get in, get out. Hopefully no one sees me. Because I think I was kind of devastated on the inside and on the outside. So I think I've said enough. I don't mean for this to be kind of a dreary video, I mean for it to be like a chance for you to be honest and gentle with yourself, a chance for me to be honest and gentle with myself about the challenge. And I'll wrap up with this is my thought about it this morning is that I'm kind of like a baby. I'm like a newborn baby or a kid or an infant or a toddler or whatever that doesn't really know how to handle stress. And I was feeling it as I was taking my shower this morning. Like I'd so much rather just go over to the couch and plug into my phone and like just start absorbing mindless information from social media, and instead of kind of having to sit with what's going on in my own inner world. I'm at a point where, and this is another thing that has to do with actualizing potential, where I'm looking for interior clarity so that I can act with elegance in the world. You look around the world, there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of tension. I personally am an advocate. Yes, I think it's great to try to go out there and make a change in the world and in those problems, do what you can. But I also believe that all of those problems that we witness going on in the exterior landscape are reflected in our own interior landscape in our own individual ways. So if there's something out there in the world that is bothering you, you can look inside yourself and see what sort of shifts and changes that you can make. And if we all did that, what would the world be like? I was doing my cat cow practice yesterday, which is like, if I don't have time for a full yoga class, sometimes I just get on my hands and my knees. I do 5 cat cows with breath, nice and slow. Inhale, drop the belly, lift the heart, lift the tail. Exhale, round the spine, look back, tuck the tailbone, tuck the chin. And as I was doing that, I was wondering, what if everybody in the world did 5 cat cows every single day? What would our world be like? Not that I'm trying to dictate some sort of authoritarian cat-cow mandate, but the point is that you take a little bit of time to connect with yourself, with your body, with your breath, with your mind. I think I'll probably go do that right now. Thank you so much for watching this video.